Imagine that within you lies a hidden code, not written in ink nor carved in stone, but woven into the invisible threads of your mind. An ancient code that doesn't belong only to your history, but to your destiny. A code capable of transforming your reality, healing your life, and unlocking the endless flow of abundance, love, and purpose. This is not just another book, it is a key, an invocation, a call to awaken the inner magician you forgot you were, the one who can reprogram their mental DNA, not through struggle, but through awareness. Because what you think, feel, and believe doesn't just shape your world, it codes it. Joseph Murphy, a pioneer of applied metaphysics, left us the knowledge to master the most powerful force in the universe, the subconscious mind. In this work, inspired by his principles, we journey deep into the human soul, where the thoughts that create futures and the fears that sabotage miracles are born. Get ready to rewrite your mental programming, deactivate inherited limiting beliefs, and activate the new code of total transformation. It isn't magic, though it feels like it. It is spiritual science, powered by faith and guided by your highest intention. This is your moment. This is your time. The life you desire already exists. You simply need to activate the code. Your mind is a divine laboratory. Every word you speak, every image you accept as true, every emotion you repeat without realizing it, is recording instructions deep within you. And those instructions, though invisible, have visible consequences. Your health, your finances, your relationships, your opportunities are not the result of chance, fate, or environment. They are the precise manifestation of the mental patterns you have accepted as real. This book is not a theory. It is a practical guide to rewrite those patterns. It is a manual for you to take control right now of what your mind records so that your subconscious, that silent and obedient servant, can begin to build results that align with your true desires. Because if you are reading these words, it's because somewhere within you, you already know there is more. You already sense that something doesn't quite fit between what you desire and what you're experiencing. And the reason is not out there, it lies in the mental code that governs you. Many believe that DNA is a sentence, that what is written in their body cannot be changed. But they ignore the truth. The body is only the densest reflection of a mind in action. What you call genetics is, in many cases, simply emotional programming repeated over the years. What you believe is inherited may have been learned. What you believe is biological can be deactivated. And what you choose to record today will become flesh tomorrow. Jesus said, "By your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." This is not a moral phrase, it's a law of mental function. Your word is the seed, your thought is the water, and your emotion is the sun. If you plant seeds of lack, water them with thoughts of fear, and shine them with emotions of guilt, your harvest will be inevitable. But if you change the seed, the entire garden changes. This book was written for that, to help you learn to sow again. Here you will find clear explanations, practical exercises, and mental tools that have transformed thousands of lives. But above all, you will find the power to say, "I choose to think differently." And when you do that, when you consciously decide what to record in your mind, that's when your true freedom begins. You are not your past, you are not your symptoms, you are not what others said about you. You are what you now choose to believe. Welcome to your reprogramming. Welcome to your new mental DNA. Reprogram your mental DNA based on the teachings of Joseph Murphy. We've noticed that over 80% of our viewers are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to keep creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1, The Original Code, and How Your Mind Learned to Obey Foreign Ideas. From the very first moment you opened your eyes to the world, you were already receiving instructions. You didn't know it, but your subconscious mind, that silent reservoir of creative power, was recording everything you heard, everything you saw, everything you felt. And it did so without filtering, without judging, without comparing. Everything you experienced in childhood became an internal law. Every phrase you heard was met with an unspoken amen. Every gesture, every look of approval or disapproval was registered by your subconscious as true, as final, as unquestionable. That is how your mind's original code began, an emotional programming that even now continues to silently shape the course of your life. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between reality and suggestion. If a teacher once said, "You're not good at this," that phrase became a seed sown in fertile ground. If an authority figure called you slow, clumsy, or sinful, the emotional impact of those words entered directly into your belief system. You may have consciously forgotten, but your subconscious never does. That's why so many people live trapped in scripts they never wrote, obeying ancient commands without knowing they have the power to change them. Have you ever asked yourself why you keep repeating the same mistakes? Why it's hard to trust yourself even when your abilities are clear? Why patterns in your life repeat as if you were destined for them? It's not a curse, it's a code. What we often call destiny is just a collection of foreign ideas we accepted as truth during vulnerable moments. Medical science recognizes DNA as a biological code, but there's a more powerful one, the emotional mental code. In this book, we will call it emotional cellular memory. This code is not passed on through genes, but through intense experiences. It doesn't reside in the double helix, but in the phrases you accepted as absolute truth. This memory is like a background program on a computer. You don't see it, but it shapes how you think, how you react, how you love, how you fear, how you decide. I remember a woman who came to me with chronic insomnia. She had tried medicine, therapy, lifestyle changes. Nothing worked. During our conversation, a memory surfaced. As a child, her mother made her pray every night with the words, "If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take." Though spoken with no ill intent, her subconscious recorded that phrase as a threat. Sleep became dangerous. We discovered her body was resisting sleep as a defense mechanism against a command received at age 6. We replaced the prayer with a positive affirmation. "I sleep in peace and my soul is protected by divine light." Within a week, she was sleeping deeply and continuously. What changed? The code. The subconscious is like a garden. If you plant thorns, thorns will grow. If you plant wheat, you'll harvest bread. But no one told you that you were planting seeds while crying, while obeying, while being scolded, praised, or ignored. Every emotional experience was a seed, and now you're living the harvest of those past plantings. It's crucial to understand that your childhood mind had no rational filters. Everything you were told, you believed, because you didn't yet know how to question. When someone said, "God punishes," your subconscious didn't argue, it obeyed. When you heard that money is dirty, that rich people are evil, or that love equals suffering, those ideas were imprinted as decrees. And now, whenever you try to move forward, something inside sabotages you, because the old code is still active. This is where your true power begins. If you recognize that your mind was programmed by foreign ideas, then you can also reprogram it with true ideas, chosen by you. The same mechanism that led you to limitation can lead you to freedom. You just need to plant consciously, with faith, with repetition, and with emotion. The good news is your subconscious is not evil. It's not against you, it's just obeying. It's a loyal servant that follows orders. If you command failure, it delivers it. If you command health, it delivers that too. "The servant is not greater than his master," said Jesus. The subconscious can't tell you that's not true. It only says, "Yes, master." That's why reading books or attending talks is not enough. Real change happens when you consistently replace old phrases with new affirmations. And to do that, you need to understand how the original code was written, so you can erase it with precision. A man once came to me, distressed that every time he earned money he got sick. We discovered that his father used to say, "People with money become corrupt." That phrase became his internal law, so every time he prospered, his body created a crisis to keep him pure. We replaced that command with a new one. Money is good and blesses everyone who uses it with love. His financial life and health began to improve. You can do this too, but first, you must identify which ideas govern your system. What phrases keep echoing in your mind? What emotions get triggered by success or failure? What beliefs did you accept as truth when you were most vulnerable? Your mental DNA can be rewritten. You don't need to change your genes, just your thoughts. And when you do it consistently, your cells will respond, because the body doesn't distinguish between a medical command and an emotional one. For the subconscious, everything is law, especially when repeated with conviction. It's no coincidence that the Gospels say, "According to your faith, be it done unto you." That's not theology, it's programming. Your deep beliefs shape your biology, your behavior, your environment. Change your belief, and you will change your life. You are now beginning a journey of reprogramming. The first step is to recognize the code that was installed without your permission. The second is to decide you will no longer live under foreign ideas. And the third is to develop a new programming based on truth, power, and freedom. Remember this: your mind is not broken, it's just following old orders. And now you have the authority to give it new instructions. The gardener has awakened. It's time to plant what is right. Chapter 2: Repetition and Inheritance. How familiar words became your inner structure. Words have shape. Even if you cannot see them, they have weight, direction, and permanence. Every phrase you heard during childhood, especially those repeated with emotion, became another brick within your mental structure. This invisible structure dictates how you walk through the world, how you react, how you value yourself, how you limit yourself. You didn't inherit just the shape of your nose or the build of your bones. You also inherited a psychic architecture, a construction of phrases and emotions that you now call me. But that me was built by others. From the cradle, your mind was an open surface, ready to be imprinted. In that state of emotional hypersensitivity, the subconscious absorbed everything. There was no judgment, no logic, only recording. And what was recorded the most was what was repeated the most. Money doesn't grow on trees. Better poor but honest. That's difficult, y'all. That's for others, not for us. These phrases, repeated by your parents, grandparents, neighbors, or teachers as harmless truths, were in fact hypnotic formulas. Each repetition added another layer of solidity to that belief until it became inner structure. You weren't born afraid of money, illness, or failure. Those fears were learned. They were repeated in your environment as cultural, familial, or religious truths, and your obedient subconscious stored them as permanent instructions. Why? Because you heard them during moments of emotion, vulnerability, or authority. And the subconscious doesn't argue, it only replicates. What we often call personality is simply a file of borrowed phrases. What you think is you, I'm impatient, I'm insecure, I'm weak-willed, is a mental recording playing back, because no one taught you how to record something new. And here lies the deepest inheritance, not genetic but verbal and emotional. When you see a family where 3 generations have lived in lack, you're not seeing a curse, you're seeing repetition. The children repeat the phrases of the parents, who learned them from the grandparents, and so on. The mind makes no distinction between what's biological and what's learned if the emotional impact is the same. A phrase spoken in pain can alter your nervous system with the same force as a genetic disease. That's why it is urgent to observe, record, and replace. The spoken word takes form in the body. There are children who grow up hearing, "We're always sick," and adults who repeat that prophecy unknowingly. There are those who heard, "Love always hurts," and now build relationships that follow that programming to the letter. Others were raised with "God punishes" and today live in automatic guilt, even if they've never harmed anyone. The good news is this: what is learned can be unlearned. What is repeated can be replaced. But to do so, you must first identify which phrases have installed themselves as invisible laws in your life. It's not enough to read new affirmations if the soil is still seeded with old commands. You must uproot the root, not just trim the withered flower. A young man once came to me struggling with a chronic inability to save money. He had a good job, steady income, yet his bank account was always empty. As we explored his history, he remembered his father saying weakly, "Money is meant to be spent, if not it rots." That phrase, repeated with pride, had been internalized as a command. Although he now wanted to save, his subconscious was still obeying the old order to spend. I helped him install a new formula: "Money well cared for blesses my life and the lives of those I love." 3 months later, he had a savings fund for the first time in his life. Another case was a woman with chronic pain that no doctor could explain. In her childhood, her mother would say, "Strong women carry all the pain in silence." That phrase became her law. Whenever she felt pain, she never shared it, and by not expressing it, her body intensified it. When she replaced that idea with a new one, "I can express what I feel, and by speaking it, I heal," the symptoms began to fade. It wasn't an external miracle, it was internal obedience to a new instruction. Now understand this. Your subconscious is like an actor following the script it's been given. If the script says you can't, it will act accordingly. If it says everything is hard, it will create obstacles. But if you change the script, the play changes, and you can rewrite what you inherited. Conscious repetition has more power than unconscious repetition, if done with persistence. Do you remember familiar phrases that you no longer want to define your destiny? Do you remember how certain ideas seemed immovable simply because everyone believed them? Today you can begin dissolving them. Faith is not a feeling, it is a practice, and your new practice will begin with a mental X-ray of what you've inherited. Practical exercise. 1. The family mental X-ray. Step 1. Uncensored writing. Take a notebook. Write down 10 phrases you often heard during your childhood. It doesn't matter if they seem silly or harmless, just note them. Example: the world is dangerous, life is hard, one must settle for less, be honest, let your memory speak. Step 2. Emotional identification. Next to each phrase, write down what emotion that idea provoked in you as a child: fear, shame, guilt, rejection. This step helps you understand how the idea penetrated your subconscious. Step 3. Present verification. Now, beside each phrase, write whether that belief is still active today. Do you feel you can't trust? Do you avoid receiving money easily? Do you self-sabotage when you love? If the answer is yes, that phrase is still functioning as an inner law. Step 4. Conscious substitution. Rewrite each phrase with a new truth. It must be clear, positive, and affirmative. Example: life is hard becomes life supports me with love. Repeated upon waking and before sleeping for 21 days straight. Step 5. Optional spoken declaration. Record your voice saying the new phrases. Listen to them with headphones while relaxing. The subconscious responds more strongly to the tone of your own voice than to any other stimulus. Remember, you are not the voice of your parents. You are the voice that chooses today how it wants to live. Chapter 3. Mental DNA. Your body follows the pattern of your dominant thoughts. There is not a single cell in your body that acts in isolation. Each one is connected to your mind through an invisible network of constant instructions. What you imagine, what you believe, what you fear, and what you repeat mentally becomes the information your body translates into physiological processes. If your thoughts are harmonious, your body tends toward balance. If your thoughts are chaotic, your body manifests disorder. This is not an unfounded metaphysical belief. It is a universal law that operates with mathematical precision. Your body has no will of its own. It does not think, decide, or judge. It is the exact reflection of what your mind has decided to accept as true. Every sustained thought transforms into an electrochemical signal. This signal travels through the nervous system, influences hormones, alters neurotransmitters, modifies blood flow, accepts muscle contraction, changes the rhythm of organs, and ultimately becomes visible matter. Symptoms, ailments, chronic states, or miraculous regenerations. When you understand that your body obeys your inner dialogue, you also understand that your organs are not victims of external circumstances, but interpreters of your internal ideas. If you firmly believe your stomach is weak, you will begin to feel acidity. If you repeat that your back can no longer bear the weight, that area will begin to tense. If you fear cancer as if it were a lurking enemy, you keep a stress frequency turned on that weakens your immune system and prepares the ground for dysfunction. A 46-year-old man came to my consultation with severe joint pain. He had been trying medications, physical therapies, and supplements for 3 years with no results. I asked if there was something he repeated mentally every day. He replied without thinking, "I feel like life weighs too much on me, as if I carry everything." That phrase was the command. His subconscious had literally translated that idea into chronic muscle tension. I asked him to repeat every night before sleeping, "Life supports me. I feel light, sustained, and at peace." After 6 weeks, the pain had diminished by 80%. Not by a miracle, but by mental obedience. Cells have memory, and that memory is not isolated from thought. When you hold an idea with intensity and persistence, that idea becomes part of the body's operating system. This is what many scientists today call epigenetics, the ability of the mental and emotional environment to activate or deactivate specific genes. In other words, your DNA is not a fixed destiny, but a code that responds to what you decide to think and believe. A remarkable case was a woman diagnosed with infertility. Doctors told her chances were 0, but instead of giving up, she began a rigorous daily visualization process. Every morning and every night, She imagined her uterus functioning perfectly. She spoke to it with phrases like, "You are fertile. You know how to create life." She did this for 9 months. In the 10th, she became pregnant. She did not contradict science. She rewrote the command. Thought forms structures. Just as an architect designs a building in their mind before the first brick is laid, you are constantly designing the shape and function of your body. If you repeat, "My memory is failing," you weaken your neural connections. If you say, "I always get sick in winter," you instruct your immune system to lower its guard. But if instead you repeat, "My body obeys my inner health," you activate automatic recovery mechanisms. Have you wondered why some people heal faster than others? Why some seem to resist every virus or physical trauma? The difference is not only genetics, but constant mental attitude. Thoughts are molds, and the body pours its chemistry into those molds. If the mold is fear, the structure will be fragile. If the mold is trust, the structure will be strong. Many believe accidents are random, but many times I have seen how people who feel unconscious guilt over recent success end up causing a fall, a fracture, or an illness as a form of self-punishment. They do not do it on purpose, but their subconscious, which seeks internal coherence, acts to balance what it feels is excess. I have seen prosperous men ruin themselves right after receiving an inheritance because in their mind was the belief, "I don't deserve this much." The body can also sabotage itself if the soul does not feel worthy. Therefore, the first step towards solid, sustained health is not in the supplement you take, nor in the doctor you visit, but in the thought you hold. The most powerful medicine is inner conviction. When you say, "My body is a temple of divine order," you are sending a direct command that modifies cellular structure. This is not superstition. It is the law of correspondence, cause and effect. However, repeating affirmations without awareness is not enough. The subconscious does not respond to what you say once. It responds to what you feel as true, what you visualize clearly, what you associate with emotion. If you repeat, "I am healthy," but inside you feel sick, the instruction has no power. But if you associate that phrase with a clear image, for example, yourself running, breathing deeply, smiling, and maintain it for weeks, you are reprogramming your mental DNA. Remember this, every cell in your body listens to your thoughts. It does not matter if you say them out loud or just imagine them. Inner language is the master language, and if that language changes, your blood, bones, skin, and neurons also change. It is not about denying what you feel, but taking control of the mental direction you decide to sustain. God gave you the power to rewrite your inner world, not to deny reality, but to create a higher reality. The body was designed to obey the mind, and the mind was designed to obey the spirit. When that order is restored, everything heals, everything rebuilds, everything renews. In the next chapter, we will explore how to identify the thoughts that are silently harming you and how to extract them before they keep shaping your physical life without your permission. Chapter 4. Words that replicate, how what you say shapes your energy system. Every word you pronounce carries a frequency. That frequency generates a pattern. This pattern is interpreted by your nervous system as a structural command. This is not a metaphor, it is a law. The human biological system is designed to respond to language not only in its rational content, but also in its vibration. When you say, for example, "It breaks my nerves," you are not making a poetic comment. You are emitting a vibrational sequence that reaches your central nervous system as a literal command. The body does not process sarcasm or exaggeration, it only processes energy. Every word has weight, electrical charge, and direction. When you consistently repeat phrases like, "This makes me sick," "I'm fed up," "I'm going to lose it," you are planting a structure of dissonance in your energetic field. The subconscious does not understand that you're joking. It only hears the instruction and replicates what was said. Words shape energy, and energy shapes matter. This is not an esoteric belief. There are quantum physics experiments, such as those by Masaru Emoto with water crystals, that show how different words create different structures in atoms. Words of love create symmetry. Words of hate generate distortion. Your body is made up of over 70% water. Do you need more proof that what you say is imprinted? A patient once told me, "My liver is rotten." He said it without thinking, as a habitual phrase. Over the years, he developed a progressive liver condition. Coincidence? No. Causality. Language creates energetic pathways that become physiological roots. The obedient subconscious simply executed what was repeated to it for so long. Another notable case was a teacher who often said, "I'm dying to help others." It was her usual expression. At 52, she developed chronic fatigue syndrome with episodes of immune collapse. When she changed her internal language to affirmations like, "I am a source of health as I serve with joy," her body began to regain strength. There was no other change. It wasn't the diet, it was the word. We must understand that the human body has a system for interpreting language. The endocrine glands respond to the emotional intention behind the phrases. If you repeat, "This makes me angry," your hypothalamus sends signals to the adrenal glands to release cortisol. If you say, "I feel at peace," serotonin production is stimulated. Your DNA is not disconnected from this chain. Neurobiology studies demonstrate that language can activate or deactivate certain genes, especially those related to immune response and cell regeneration. Now, this is not about speaking positive affirmations as a superficial formula. It is about understanding that language is a creative technology. Every phrase you repeat is a program installed in your energy field and replicates as a pattern of behavior, emotion, and physiology. When you say, "This has no solution," you are closing neural doors. When you say, "Everything has a solution in God," you open creative pathways that allow the higher mind to intervene. In the Bible we read, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Proverbs 18:21. This is not a metaphor, it is a spiritual diagnosis. The tongue is the most dangerous organ when used unconsciously, and the most miraculous when aligned with inner truth. Most people have used their mouth as a weapon without knowing it. They insult themselves with phrases like, "I'm a fool," "I'm no good at this," "I'm getting old," and the body obeys. Your DNA contains the basic blueprints of your physical body, but it is not static. It is a set of switches that turn on or off depending on the environment. And what is the closest environment to DNA? Your thoughts, your emotions, and especially your words. If you use words that replicate harmony, beauty, order, your genetic code expresses with greater clarity. If you use words that replicate chaos, criticism, devaluation, your code becomes distorted. Think about this. When an engineer programs a machine, they use lines of code. Each line tells the machine what to do, when, and how. Your word is that code. If you say, "I am strong, clear, capable," you are writing instructions that the subconscious transforms into neurochemistry. If you say, "I can't anymore," the code creates blocks, slowness, confusion. Remember that the nervous system is directly connected to the heart's electromagnetic field. Every word spoken with emotion has a double chemical and energetic effect. That is why it is not enough to say affirmations like empty chants. You must say them with conviction, with presence, as one commanding an internal army, because that is what you are doing. Do not limit yourself to correcting obvious phrases. Pay attention to small, everyday expressions. "I don't know," "I don't have," "I lack," "it's difficult." These are seeds that multiply. The subconscious does not distinguish between trivial and important. It only records and executes. That is why you must turn your language into a surgical tool, precise, effective. Use words that replicate health, abundance, order, wisdom. Instead of saying, "I always get sick," say, "My body adapts and grows stronger." Instead of "Money never lasts," say, "Divine provision flows through me." Instead of "This is very difficult," say, "Everything becomes clear when I listen calmly." These are not just nice phrases. They are energetic commands that alter your internal state, your vibration, your DNA, and your environment. It is time to turn your mouth into a laboratory, not to experiment with theories, but to train yourself as an alchemist of the word, because the word is law, and every law activated with wisdom produces constant miracles. Practical exercise 2, the word laboratory. For 7 days, practice this verbal retraining protocol. Upon waking, say aloud 3 reprogramming phrases directed to your body. For example, "My cells listen to love and respond with life." "My heart beats to the rhythm of divine joy." "Every organ obeys the peace that dwells within me." During the day, detect and replace in real time any phrase containing judgment, complaint, or fatalism. Don't suppress it, firmly change it. For example, instead of "I can't," say "I am learning." Instead of "This overwhelms me," say "God guides me through this." Before sleeping, repeat 3 times the following complete formula. I decree order, health, and wisdom in every cell of my body. My word is law to my mind is a house of peace, my body is a reflection of that peace, and so it shall be. Do this without interruption for 7 days. Write down any changes, even subtle ones. Well-directed words modify the entire energy system. Chapter 5. The Night Messenger. What happens when you go to sleep with an idea in your mind? The subconscious never sleeps. This phrase should be engraved in you both as a warning and a promise. While your body rests, your breathing softens and your senses withdraw. The deep mind, that creative reservoir where the events of your life are forged, continues operating without pause. It does not reason, it does not doubt, it does not evaluate whether what it receives is good or bad. It simply takes note of the last thing it heard, the last thing you felt intensely, the last thing you repeated before closing your eyes. That is the seed that decides what will bloom while you dream. There are people who fall asleep repeating phrases like, tomorrow will be the same, everything will get worse, or I can't take it anymore. They do this without knowing that they are precisely invoking chaos, because the subconscious works with exactness. It is a faithful operator who does not question the morality of your commands, but who executes with devotion everything you entrust to it with deep emotion. If, when closing your eyes, what dominates your mental field is worry, resentment, or self-pity, then your inner mind receives that vibration as the central programming for the hours ahead. And most importantly, that programming imprints more strongly during sleep than during wakefulness. Why? Because rational censorship withdraws. The critical guardian falls asleep, and then the creative mind is free to accept whatever it is told without argument. I have dealt with hundreds of people who unknowingly self-programmed for illness, ruin, or rejection. One woman told me once, "Every night I review in my head what went wrong during the day." I replied, "Then don't expect anything to go right tomorrow, because if the last mental vibration you emit before sleeping is one of lack or fear, then the mold for your next day has already been made with those same energies." The Bible says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." Psalm 4:8. This is not a romantic psalm, it is a precise instruction. Sleep in peace, sow confidence, because the moment of rest is also the moment of deep sowing. If the last thing you think as you close your eyes is an image of well-being, a decree of faith, a word of gratitude, then you are writing your destiny with invisible letters on a matter that obeys you. Dr. Emmett Fox explained that sleep was the secret workshop where tomorrow's conditions are forged, and he was right. Your mind, in that intermediate state between conscious and unconscious, absorbs what you give it and turns it into substance. A thought sustained while sleeping can activate the recovery of an organ, the arrival of an opportunity, or even the solution to a problem that seemed hopeless. But you must understand this. The subconscious only acts on what it receives with clarity, repetition, and emotion. Wishing is not enough. Saying an affirmation mechanically is not enough. You have to feel that what you say is true. You have to visualize it, hear it, touch it internally. That is why I insist so much on the nighttime practice. There is no more powerful tool to reconfigure your life than learning to sow well before sleep. A man told me that for years he suffered from chronic insomnia. Every night he went to bed fearing he would not be able to sleep. By doing so, he sent that idea to the subconscious, and it obeyed. I retrained him with one phrase, "Every night I sleep deeply in the peace of God." I asked him to repeat it slowly, with conviction, and to associate it with an image of rest. By the third night, he was sleeping like he hadn't for years. It was a miracle, not magic law, but automatic obedience of the deep mind. Another woman, buried in debt, confessed she cried every night thinking about her bills. I told her, "Your subconscious doesn't know banks or checks. It only knows that every night you feel fear, and that means it must keep reproducing situations that make you feel the same." I taught her to say before sleeping, "Divine supply flows to me without cease." Everything stopped. In less than 3 weeks, unexpected income appeared. Not because the phrase has magical power, but because by being accepted by the inner mind, it began changing circumstances to align with what it believed. Do not underestimate the hour when you fall asleep. It is a daily appointment with your inner architect. It is the most vulnerable and most sacred moment. Close your eyes, but not your awareness. Decide what you will think, what you will decree, what seed you will plant in that fertile field. Do not leave that door open to chance, fear, or the noise of the day. Be the one who gives the last word, and let that word be good. Before going to sleep tonight, quietly say with certainty, "This idea I now plant multiplies as I sleep." Then declare what you wish to see manifest. Don't ask for it, command it, because you are not a beggar in the universe. You are the owner of the field, and what you sow with faith manifests without fail. Remember this truth: the subconscious mind works while you rest, and it does so based on the last idea it received as true. Use this law. Make the moment of sleep your moment of power. Chapter 6, The New Genesis: How to Create an Identity Your Subconscious Can Obey. One of the most common reasons affirmations don't work is because the individual continues to act, think, and feel like the person who does not have what they are asking for. The subconscious, when receiving contradictory orders between the verbal affirmation and the emotional identity, simply responds with inaction, or worse yet, with manifestations that reinforce the previous state. If you affirm, "I am prosperous," but you continue to fear opening your bank statement, buying out of necessity, or repeating phrases of lack, your deep mind cannot obey the command because it is not coherently coded. For an affirmation to have real power, it is not enough to repeat it. It must be backed by an internal identity that supports it. And this identity is not obtained through logic. It is built by emotional habit. The human being, as we understand in mental law, is not a fixed structure but a set of embodied beliefs. You are not your body, nor your name, nor your past. You are the active sum of the ideas you have believed about yourself and the world. Change those ideas, and you also change. That is why transformation does not begin with external experience. It begins with the internal act of imagining yourself differently. You cannot have something that contradicts who you believe you are. If a woman affirms she is loved but deep down believes she does not deserve it, the subconscious will obey the belief, not the phrase. If a man declares, "I am healthy," but continues to see himself as sick in his mind, the subconscious will replicate the dominant image. The word without image has no body. Affirmation without identity is like a seed without soil. In the Gospel of Mark, it is told that Jesus could not perform miracles in his own town because of their unbelief. Mark 6:5-6. What is this unbelief? It is not a lack of faith in an external power, but resistance to accepting a new identity. They could not believe that the carpenter was a healer. In the same way, you cannot receive healing, prosperity, or love if your inner mind keeps seeing you as a victim, poor, undesirable, or rejected. Your subconscious needs a clear and constant image of whom you are serving. If you keep reactivating the old image, it will keep producing the results that identity creates. Every lasting change in your life begins with a radical mental act, imagining yourself as the one who has already received. Instead of saying, "I want to be healthy," say, "I am already healthy." But even more, act, think, and feel like someone who truly is. This is the principle of the law of being before having. It is not about pretending. It is about installing a new frame of reference in the system. When you affirm something and live it mentally as true, even if it has not yet manifested, you are activating the previous circuit that will later become experience. A woman came to me saying, "I repeat affirmations all day, but nothing changes." I asked, "Do you behave like someone who believes what they say?" She lowered her head. She said she kept lamenting her loneliness, avoided looking in the mirror, and felt unworthy of love. I explained that the subconscious does not hear the affirmation as you recite it. It hears it as you live it. If you say, "I am loved," but you walk like someone who has been rejected, the real message is from the body, not the mouth. I asked her to spend a week acting as if she were already in a happy relationship, speaking kindly to herself, taking care of her appearance, feeling chosen. By the second week, an old acquaintance wrote to her. By the third, she was starting a new story. It was not coincidence. It was aligned programming. The Bible says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." Proverbs 23:7. Not as he says with his mouth, but as he thinks deeply. That thought is not abstract. It is a sustained image, a repeated emotion, an embodied expectation. If you desire abundance but see yourself as someone barely surviving, the subconscious will continue attracting conditions that confirm that image. The new Genesis begins with a new self-portrait. Redefine how you see yourself. Change the story you tell yourself about who you are. Repeat, I am the one who has already received. Visualize it. Write it down. Act it out, because your mind does not work with possibilities. It works with assumed inner realities. A businessman told me he couldn't break an income ceiling. He had been stuck at a number for years. When we examined his speech, we discovered he always described himself as a practical guy, someone with his feet on the ground, no millionaire fantasies. That image, although it seemed realistic, was his trap. It prevented him from thinking, dreaming, and acting like someone who could generate more. I asked him to describe himself out loud as an unlimited channel of provision. He laughed. It seemed false to him. I told him, you don't need to believe it yet. You just need to repeat it and act a little each day as if it were true. After 3 months, he had quadrupled his revenue. What changed? His identity, not his clients, not his market. The secret is this: your subconscious needs coherence. If you give it affirmations that contradict your usual way of thinking and feeling, it won't know what to obey. But if you can build a new internal image and live it every day, then your whole system reconfigures. Your body, your emotions, your actions, and finally your results. Not because the universe rewards you, but because now you are someone different, and results always correspond to being. Before asking for something, ask yourself, who do I have to be to receive it? Then, be it. Don't think it over. Don't analyze it. Be it. The law of the new Genesis is this: change begins within you, not in the world. Change your concept of yourself, and the world will respond. Practical exercise. 3. The night map. Objective: implant a visualized affirmation just before sleep and reinforce it upon waking. Instructions. Before sleeping, write a clear affirmation that represents your new identity. Example, I am prosperous and all my needs are met. Visualize for 1 minute a scene that represents that affirmation fulfilled. See yourself receiving a payment, embracing a loved one, waking up full of energy, etc. Feel that it is already real. Feel the gratitude, feel the naturalness, not as a wish, but as a memory. Repeat the affirmation quietly 3 times just before closing your eyes. Upon waking, before touching your phone or moving too much, repeat the same affirmation and visualization. Daily, record how you felt during the exercise, what you dreamed, and how it influenced your day. Use a notebook called Night Map. Do this for 7 consecutive nights, then review your notebook. You will see that what once seemed symbolic begins to turn into substance. Chapter 7. Precise instructions like giving orders your subconscious can follow. One of the most important truths you must understand, if you want to deeply reprogram your mind, is this: the subconscious does not work with ambiguity. It does not process doubts. It does not analyze contexts, nor interpret intentions. Its mechanism is automatic, literal, and obedient. It receives instructions like a faithful servant and executes them, even though the consequences are not always desirable. That is why many people say they repeat positive phrases without results. They do so with uncertain emotion, amid contradictory thoughts, without a congruent emotional structure. It's like giving an order and instantly cancelling it. The subconscious, not receiving a clear and sustained signal, simply maintains the previous state. It is not ignoring you. It is waiting for precise instructions. The first requirement for a mental order to be effective is that it be clear and affirmative. Confusing, negative, or conditional phrases do not activate the creative power of your inner mind. If you say, I don't want more debt, you are mentally reinforcing the idea of debt. The subconscious does not register the no, but the image and emotion associated with the dominant concept. If you say, I hope to get a job, you are speaking from uncertainty. The verb hope introduces a chance variable that does not belong to the language of creation. On the contrary, if you affirm, I work in the perfect place for me and I am valued for what I do, you are creating a mental structure that can be processed and replicated. Those are instructions the subconscious understands. They have direction, certainty, and form. The second essential element is emotional consistency. You cannot declare that you are healthy and at the same time fear every symptom. You cannot affirm prosperity and spend the day complaining about money. The subconscious language is not only verbal, it is sensory, energetic, vibrational. Emotions are the colors with which you paint your mental orders. An affirmation without emotional charge is like a seed without moisture. It does not germinate. That is why it is indispensable that when you repeat your phrases, you activate in yourself a real feeling of certainty, gratitude, fulfillment. You must feel that it is already true, even if it is not yet visible. That emotion is the bridge between thought and manifestation. The third factor is specificity. The inner mind does not respond well to vague phrases like, "I want to be well," or "I want to improve in general." The subconscious needs a clear image of what it must produce. If you give it a concrete, detailed, and repeated order, it will accept it as true and start reorganizing your thoughts, decisions, physical reactions, and external connections so that it becomes your reality. If you are programming health, don't simply say, "I want to be healthy." Say, "My lungs are clean, strong, and breathe easily. Every cell in my body cooperates with my recovery." That phrase has a purpose, a specific organ, a language of fulfillment, and is free of contradictions. That phrase can be obeyed. A woman wrote to me from Colombia telling me she couldn't sleep. She had been repeating phrases like, "I want to rest," or "I hope I sleep well tonight" for years. I explained that those phrases were imprecise. They did not define an image of the result nor activate clear language. I asked her to start saying, "I fall asleep deeply with peace in my mind. My body rests in divine order. Every night my rest is complete and renewing." Also, she had to repeat that affirmation with a calm voice, feeling the experience of rest in her body even before it arrived. Within a few days, her body started registering the new command. Her mind obeyed, and she slept again without medication for the first time in years. Another important condition is the present time. The subconscious does not work with uncertain futures. Phrases like, "I will be successful," "I will have health," "someday I will be happy," place the order outside the aura and therefore are not activated. The subconscious does not program possibilities, it programs assumed realities. That is why you must always affirm in the present. "I am successful," "I am healthy," "I live in peace," even if there are no visible signs of that result in your environment yet. Remember, you are not describing the current reality. You are giving the order to create the new one. You don't need to wait to see the harvest to start planting with conviction. In my experience as a spiritual counselor, I have seen hundreds of cases where a well-constructed affirmation has completely transformed a person's life. But there is always a common point. The affirmation was clear, constant, and charged with emotional faith. Not a pretty phrase taken from a book. It was a living command said with authority. And when you speak with authority, your mind obeys. Jesus said, "Whoever says to this mountain, 'Be taken up and thrown into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him." Mark 11:23. The key is not doubting in the heart, that is, aligning thought, emotion, and word. Many people repeat affirmations as if they were magic recipes, but do not care for the inner attitude with which they say them. That is why they get no results. The subconscious is extremely sensitive to coherence. If it perceives that you doubt, it cancels the order. If it detects contradiction between what you say and what you feel, it maintains the previous pattern. But if you speak with faith, precision, daily repetition without interruption, and clear images, then it responds. Not by magic, but by law. Your deep mind works like fertile soil. It needs a clear seed, an adequate emotional climate, and daily watering. Then it produces. Before closing this chapter, I invite you to review the affirmations you use frequently. Are they clear orders or vague phrases? Are they in the present or future? Do they evoke certainty or doubt? Are they charged with precise images or generalities? If you discover that your mental orders do not meet these criteria, don't worry, just correct them. The mind is always ready to obey. It only needs to receive new direction, and that direction must be written with firm letters, spoken with a decisive voice and felt with conviction. Remember this, your subconscious does not evaluate whether you deserve what you say. It only checks if you assume it as true. And if your phrase, your image, your emotion, and your repetition are aligned, then that order enters the system. And what enters manifests not because the world changes, but because you change. and everything else responds. Chapter 8. Cellular Language. What cells understand as truth. There isn't a single cell in your body that is beyond the reach of your thoughts. You might not perceive it, but every cell, every molecule, every particle responds like an attentive listener to what your mind continuously declares. This is not a poetic figure or a spiritual metaphor. It is an observation grounded both in the principles of mental law and in the growing body of scientific evidence revealing the role of emotion, belief, and verbal repetition on the biochemistry of the human body. The cell, as the fundamental unit of life, does not make decisions. It obeys and obeys a series of chemical signals that, at their origin, are nothing more than mental impulses translated into physiological instructions. Sustained emotion generates an electrical pattern. That pattern triggers secretions. Those secretions modify the cellular environment. That's how the cycle begins. If you repeat an idea with enough emotion and persistence, that idea translates into an internal chemical state, and that chemical state creates a physical condition. A man who internally repeats, "I'm tired of all this," is not merely expressing frustration. He is manufacturing a hormonal cocktail that trains his cells to function as if under constant wear and tear. If that phrase becomes routine, the cells adapt their metabolism to that state of tension. That is why after months, chronic fatigue, muscle contracture, and inflammation appear, not because the body is weak, but because it has obeyed continuous orders. The cell does not distinguish between imagination and reality. You don't know if what you repeat is symbolic or literal. It only recognizes the vibratory pattern associated with a phrase or image. That's why someone who says every day, "This breaks my soul," unknowingly weakens their immune system, accepts the production of certain proteins, and activates responses associated with emotional pain that, over time, become physical. Is it possible to reverse this process? Of course. Just as a negative narrative can cause illness, a constructive narrative can heal. Cells also listen when spoken to with love, direction, and firmness. What's important to remember is that the subconscious is the bridge between the mind that imagines and the body that executes. If you introduce an idea repeatedly with conviction through words, sooner or later that idea becomes a biological instruction. The book of Proverbs says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Proverbs 6:1. This phrase is not just a moral warning, it is an accurate description of how the human body responds to language. When you say, "I strengthen myself every day," and you say it not as a wish but as a declaration, you are sending a signal that the body will use as a basis to readjust its processes. You don't need to understand the chemistry to activate this principle. You only need to use your word as a conscious instrument of regeneration. Clinical cases have proven this. Patients diagnosed with degenerative diseases who began repeating phrases of vitality and youth experienced improvements not attributable to traditional medical treatment. It wasn't magic. It was cellular obedience. The mind stopped ordering disease and started ordering health, and the cells responded as they always do, fulfilling the dominant instruction. Imagine your cells are faithful employees who wait every morning for an order. What are you telling them? What instructions do you repeat most often? If every day you tell yourself, "I'm slow, I'm broken, I can't go on," don't be surprised if your body functions slowly with pain or fatigue. But if today you decide to speak differently, everything changes. Cells have no ego. They don't judge you for what you said before. They just wait for a new order. And if you give it to them consistently, they will reconfigure their function. A testimony I received from a radio listener confirms this. This woman had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. After months of treatment without results, she decided to change her internal language. She wrote a phrase on her mirror, "My body loves me and I love it." She repeated it every time she looked at herself. She also began speaking softly directly to her organs before sleeping. Liver, thank you for cleansing my blood. Skin, thank you for protecting me. Blood flows with joy. In 4 months, her hormone levels began to normalize. What happened? She gave new instructions. Cellular language does not require sophisticated words. It requires clarity, repetition, and emotional coherence. That's why this chapter is not just a lesson, it's a change in practice. Starting today, your cells will listen to you as if you were their commander. What will you order? Practical exercise. 4 biological phrases. Objective: create verbal affirmations directed to specific organs of the body to promote regeneration, healing, and optimization of functions. Instructions: identify the system or organ you want to impact. It could be the digestive system, immune system, skin, bones, blood, nervous system, eyesight, etc. Create a personalized affirmation in the present tense, positive, brief, and clearly directed. Examples by system: blood. My blood flows clean and free, carrying health to every cell. Skin. My skin regenerates with freshness and harmony every day. Eyesight. I see clearly inside and out. My eyes are healthy and strong. Bones. My bones are firm, flexible, and full of life. Digestive system. My digestion is light, perfect, and rhythmic. Every food strengthens me. Reproductive system. My body creates life, pleasure, and balance with total divine intelligence. Repeat the affirmation softly 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night, emotionally focusing on the respective area of the body. Visualize simultaneously how that organ shines, breathes, strengthens, or rejuvenates as you pronounce the phrase. Write it on paper. Place it near where you will say it every day: bathroom, bedside, desk. Avoid conditional or negative language. Don't say, I don't have pain. Say instead, I am completely healthy. Do the exercise for 14 consecutive days and observe how your language, sensations, and physical state change. Final note: cells listen. Speak as one who has authority. The word is not a promise, it is an order, and the body obeys the dominant tone. Chapter 9. Psychic Contagion: How the Collective Mind Programs Your Subconscious Without You Realizing It. You are not the only source of ideas that impact your mind. Since the moment you were born, your environment has been generating waves of thought that silently infiltrate your subconscious. Most of your dominant thoughts did not come from your own personal reflection, but were absorbed, repeated, copied, and adopted as if they were yours. This is called psychic contagion, and it is one of the main invisible forces shaping the lives of millions without them noticing. Think of a city where people constantly say things are tough, there's no work, people are bad. Even if you never say those phrases, living there, hearing those ideas in conversations, news, and social media makes you start to feel that it's true. And if you feel it's true, your subconscious records it as a command. It doesn't analyze or filter, it just replicates. This is the law. Collective thought generates a dominant emotional vibration that impacts everyone who has not learned to mentally protect themselves. Just as the physical body needs immunity to avoid illness, your mind needs immunity to avoid infection by ideas that contradict your spiritual purpose. Psychic contagion doesn't only happen through words, it happens in tone of voice, gestures, silences filled with fear, music, images. Everything you emotionally perceive has the power to enter your internal field if you're not alert. A lady once told me, I was happy until I talked to a friend who said her husband was fired. Since then, I've been afraid of losing my job. What happened? Her fear was impregnated by the other's experience. Her subconscious received the scene not as an external fact, but as an activated possibility. When the mind emotionally connects with another's story, it starts living it as its own. Jesus said, "Do not join the judgment of the world." From the mental law perspective, this means, do not tune into the corrective vibration that denies spiritual truth. If you are made in the image and likeness of God, then your source is not the economy, government, or social trends. Your source is internal, divine, inexhaustible. But if you forget that and emotionally join the collective thought, you will be surrendering your creative power to a borrowed idea, and your subconscious, obedient as always, will begin producing experiences that reflect this new allegiance. Television, headlines, neighborhood rumors, and fatalistic speeches are the new contagious mental illnesses. How to protect yourself? Don't run away from the world. Don't plug your ears. You don't need to live isolated. You only need to activate your psychic immunity, which consists of 3 fundamental actions. Observe without absorbing, bless without getting involved, and affirm the truth even amidst error. Observing without absorbing means seeing the world's pain without making it yours. If someone complains, listen with compassion, but don't feel their future will also be yours. If you see negative news, don't let your emotion validate it. The subconscious programs itself when the emotion says, "This matters to me." Learn to observe from a center of peace. Watch like someone observing a passing cloud, not like someone caught in a storm. Blessing without involvement means avoiding mental criticism that connects you to the problem's energy. If you see someone in scarcity, silently say, "I bless your latent abundance." If you see illness, say, "Divine health is awakening in you." This way you keep your vibration elevated and protect your mind from the energy drop that comes with misguided compassion or unnecessary judgment. And most importantly, affirm your truth even in the midst of error. If everyone repeats, "It can't be done," you repeat, "For me, everything is possible because I am united with the divine mind." If the environment vibrates with fear, you vibrate with faith. Because on the mental plane, the dominant vibration always wins. If you learn to master your inner atmosphere, then no collective thought can implant itself in you without your permission. A young student came to me after a lecture. She said, "My parents always say studying is useless, that the country is lost, and I'm afraid they're right." I replied, "Don't live under other people's ideas. You can love your family without living from their vision. You have the right to be a free mind." I asked her to write a different phrase every day. "My thoughts are mine. I choose my reality." After a month, her confidence was different, and the most revealing part, her father, seeing her so focused, began to change his speech. Because firm thought also spreads. What you believe replicates, but what you hold with conviction also transforms. If you are the first in your environment to think differently, don't worry about seeming strange. You are sowing another frequency. Over time, others will resonate with you. Psychic contagion only affects those who lack a clear mental identity. If you know who you are and what you sow in your internal field, no outside voice can divert your destiny. The Psalm 91 says, "1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you." This is not a mystical promise. It is a mental law. If you are centered in truth, you can walk through scarcity without touching it. You can see fear without breathing it in. You can love the world without copying its pain. From today, repeat, "I have psychic immunity. I only accept what builds me up." And if any foreign thought tries to infiltrate, smile inwardly and say, "That is not mine." Because it isn't. Because you have already decided your mind is a temple, not a landfill. Chapter 10. Your true name, redefining your identity through spiritual language. The words that come out of your mouth are not harmless, especially when combined with a sacred formula. I am, that expression that seems ordinary, is actually the direct access to the matrix of your destiny. Every time you say I am followed by an idea, you are signing an order that your subconscious receives as an absolute mandate. The power is not in the long phrase nor in superficial emotion, but in the identity you decree from that root. When you say I am clumsy, I am sick, I am poor, you are engraving codes that your mind will execute with surgical precision. This is not a metaphor, it is law. In the book of Exodus, when Moses asks the burning bush for God's name, the answer is clear. I am who I am, Exodus 3:14. That is not a common name, it is a declaration of eternal identity. I am is the master key of spiritual language. Every time you use it, you invoke that same power. The question is, do you use it to build or to destroy? I've heard people say laughingly, I am a disaster, I am stupid, I am a burden. And even if they say it without serious intent, the subconscious does not catch the humor. It only captures the structure. The verb to be creates a statement of permanence. It does not describe something temporary, but an essence. That is why it is much more damaging to say, I am depressed, than I feel sad. The first statement programs identity. The second simply describes a passing state. Learn this distinction. It can save your life. Your true name is not the one given to you at birth. It is the one you build every day with your internal affirmations. If you repeat, I am capable, I am loved, I am guided, you are restoring your original vibration. Because on the soul level, you are not lack, failure, or sickness. You are a conscious extension of divine intelligence. What happens is that you have forgotten this truth. And forgetting is not healed with data, it is healed with conscious repetition. Each I am affirmation is a reminder. Each positive phrase you assume is a fiber of your true spiritual DNA. A young man came to my consultation with a defeated expression. He described himself as a nobody, a mistake, a burden to his family. I asked him, "Who told you that first?" He replied, "My father. He told me that every time he got angry. That I am was not his, it was borrowed, but he had repeated it so many times it became his own." I asked him to do an exercise for 30 days. Each night write 10 new affirmations, starting with I am, that contradicted that old programming. It wasn't easy at first, but by the 3rd day something changed. He began to cry while writing, "I am valuable. I am a child worthy of love." He felt like he was lying, but he also felt he was awakening. By the 4th week, his mind was different, his face different, his life different. Do not underestimate what you say about yourself. Everything your mind hears repeatedly in the form of I am ends up materializing because the subconscious is structured by identity. If you define yourself as weak, even your body will start reacting with symptoms of fragility. If you see yourself as lonely, you will attract emptiness. But if you redefine yourself from above, if you begin to use the I am formula consciously, I am strong, I am blessed, I am guided by infinite intelligence, then your biology, your emotions, and your environment will begin to align with that new seed. The subconscious has no sense of past, it lives in eternal present. That is why, no matter how many years you have been telling yourself something negative, it is enough to start saying the new with firmness every day for the terrain to change. It is not magic, it is persistence. It is not empty suggestion, it is inner design. The Bible declares, "Say to the devil, I am strong." Exodus 3:10. That is not a self-hypnosis, it is a spiritual command to activate a new identity. When you affirm what you want to be, even without seeing it, you are lighting the inner mold that will later be filled by the substance of experience. Redefining your identity does not mean ignoring your mistakes. It means not living from them. You may have failed, but you are not a failure. You may have been sick, but you are not sickness. You may have felt fear, but you are not fear. You are consciousness evolving, and every word you say with I am is another brick in the temple of your being. From today, I invite you to care for your vocabulary, as a priest cares for the altar. Do not pronounce over yourself any phrase you do not want to see embodied. Repeat quietly each morning. I am one with divine wisdom. I am guided. I am protected. I am prosperous. Do not expect to feel it immediately. Repeat anyway, because the mind needs persistence to obey. And remember, the universe does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your self-definition. If you want to change your life, change your I am. Everything else will come as an addition. Practical exercise. 5. The New Self-Journal. Objective: reformulate your internal identity through strategic, sustained, and recorded I am affirmations. Instructions: get a notebook that you will use exclusively for your new language of identity. Call it My True Name. Every night before sleeping, write 10 sentences starting with I am that reflect the identity you want to install. Examples: I am clarity. I am worthy of love. I am health in action. I am a divine expression of abundance. After writing each affirmation, read it aloud slowly, letting the phrase feel real inside you. While reading, imagine how your life would manifest if that affirmation were completely true. Do not repeat mechanically, live it inside. When finished, underline one of those affirmations as the affirmation for the next day and repeat it upon waking before any other activity. Do this exercise for 21 days. Do not repeat the exact same affirmations. Reformulate with new words, nuances, or applications. Diversity creates depth. At the end of the cycle, review your notebook and observe which phrases changed your emotional state, perception, and results. Remember, you are what you affirm yourself to be. Your true name is waiting to be pronounced, and each time you do so with faith, you make it real. Chapter 11. Total Reprogramming. The moment the old code breaks. The human mind is more plastic than steel, but that plasticity only activates when a new idea finally displaces the old one. This doesn't happen through repetition without emotion, nor through logic without conviction. It happens when the subconscious mind accepts a new dominant image without resistance. We call that moment total reprogramming. It is the point where there is no longer any previous doubt. The instant when the nervous system stops vibrating with the old idea and begins to hold a new one. Many people make affirmations for years without visible results, but just a few seconds of deep conviction can shake the whole system. It's not the duration that matters, but the intensity of acceptance. A single I am fully believed restructures cellular memories, frozen emotions, and entire hereditary chains. I have seen tumors dissolve after a truly embraced prayer. I have seen debts disappear when someone stops saying, "I can't," and begins living from "I am abundance." It's not their management, it's law. There are 3 clear signs that the old code has been broken. 1. Immediate physiological change. Some people feel body warmth, physical relief, disappearance of a symptom, or renewed energy. This indicates the body has received a new instruction and the old one has stopped operating. 2. Spontaneous mental silence. The mind stops opposing. Thoughts that contradict the affirmation no longer appear. This doesn't mean the mind is empty, but that it stops fighting. There is peace, there is certainty. 3. Effortless new behavior. The person acts as if what is desired is already natural. It's no longer an effort to behave like someone prosperous or to think like someone healthy. It just happens. Without discipline, without correction, it simply happens. This is the fruit of successful programming. It doesn't come by chance or luck. It comes by persistence. You introduce the new idea again and again, even if you don't feel it at first. You insist, not with anxiety, but with calm, because you know the subconscious is fertile ground but needs to be plowed, sown, and cared for. And when you least expect it, it sprouts. I have worked with people who carried the same limitation for decades. A woman told me she had lived with an irrational fear of abandonment since childhood. She had read books, attended therapy, practiced techniques. Nothing seemed enough, until one night while praying she clearly heard inside, "You were never abandoned. I was always with you." She fell silent. She cried for an hour, and the next day her energy had completely changed. She no longer sought validation, no longer feared being alone. Something broke. The old code was deactivated, the new one implanted. That doesn't mean life no longer presents challenges, but it does mean you no longer react from the old pattern. And that changes everything, because you can have problems without being a problem. You can have a scarcity situation without being poor. You can be sick in the body without being sick in your identity. That difference is made by your internal programming. The most common mistake of those who begin this path is trying to feel the affirmations from the start. But feeling should not be forced. It must be the fruit of constant repetition and guided imagination. You don't need to feel rich to say, "I am wealth." You need to plant that idea firmly until the feeling accompanies it. And once the feeling joins the word, the process is irreversible. Maintaining mental coherence is not an act of perfection, but of decision. Every time an old thought reappears, you choose not to feed it. You don't deny it with fear. You recognize it as part of the past and replace it. The mind doesn't need a fight, it needs direction. You are the shepherd of your thoughts. Not all will obey you at first, but if you remain firm in the image you have decided to hold, they will return to the fold. Your mind was programmed without your permission, but it can be reprogrammed by your decision. That is your freedom. That is your divine heritage. Practical exercise 6. The moment of acceptance. Objective: detect and anchor the instant when an affirmation begins to become real in your nervous system. Instructions. Select a central affirmation that represents the change you want to consolidate. Example: I am perfect health. I am free of all debt. I am worthy of love. For 10 minutes daily, repeat this affirmation with eyes closed, breathing slowly and visualizing a concrete scene where this affirmation is already true. Pay attention to your body. There will be a brief moment when you feel sudden peace, effortless certainty, or intense emotion. That is the moment of acceptance. At that exact moment, open your eyes and write in your notebook. Today, I accepted. Describe what you felt, even if subtle. Record the time, place, and your physical state. Do this for 7 consecutive days. Review your notes at the end. Detect if there are patterns, times, or words that more easily activate your acceptance. After these 7 days, select a new affirmation and repeat the cycle. Your system will begin to form a habit of deep acceptance. Remember, this is not about convincing yourself. It's about persisting until something inside you says, "Now, yes." That instant is sacred. In that instant, your mind changes code, and your life changes too. Chapter 12. To serve is to record. What you teach others strengthens your new pattern. One of the most powerful and often forgotten laws of the subconscious mind is this: what you share becomes fixed. When you teach a spiritual truth, you don't just transmit it. you affirm it more strongly within yourself. Every time you repeat a teaching to help another, you are reaffirming that mental pattern in your own subconscious. That is why every true teacher grows stronger with each lesson. Every healer heals themselves as they heal others. Every speaker engraves in their soul what their lips pronounce. In the world of thought, there is no loss. Mental energy is not depleted by sharing, it multiplies. What you explain clearly, your subconscious accepts as true. What you teach reinforces your identity. It is a higher form of affirmation. The shared word becomes a permanent mental structure. I have seen people who, after healing an ailment or overcoming a lack through the power of directed thought, get stuck when they stop talking about it. By not sharing what they learned, they let it cool down. The pattern does not solidify. The new mental image loses strength because it was not reinforced by the action of transmitting it. But when that same person begins to tell their experience, to explain it, to teach it, the change consolidates. Why? Because the subconscious does not distinguish between teaching another and reminding yourself. When you say, you can heal with your mind, your subconscious listens. When you say, I can heal with my mind, you activate that channel of truth inside you again. When you say, you are abundant by nature, you reactivate that truth within yourself. Talking about mental laws is a way to live them. Teaching them is a way to practice them. This also clarifies why so many people who study these teachings feel they know a lot, but do not live it. They lack the act of giving. When you share a spiritual truth from your experience, not as theory but as testimony, you generate a vibration that restructures your being. Because the subconscious reacts not only to words, but also to emotions. And no emotion is more powerful than helping another from an embodied truth. Jesus said, "Give, and it will be given to you." This phrase has been misunderstood as a material promise, but it is deeper. What you give from your consciousness returns as strengthened consciousness. You don't need to give money or things. You can give clarity, hope, guidance, and in doing so, you reinforce your own mental structure. What you affirm for others is affirmed in you. A mother who says to her child, "You are capable of achieving it," is also speaking to her own inner child who once doubted. A man who tells his friend, "Declare your health every morning," is also reminding his own nervous system. Every phrase spoken to enlighten another is a lamp lit within yourself. This also explains why spiritual service does not exhaust but renews. The one who gives soul receives in the very act of giving, because there is no separation between teacher and taught. Both are expressions of the same universal mental field. When you uplift another, you uplift yourself. When you affirm the divinity of another, you awaken it in you. Therefore, if you want to consolidate new mental programming, teach. You don't need a pulpit, an audience, or a mass communication channel. You can start with an intimate conversation, a letter, a simple recording, or a shared story. Do not teach from perfection, but from experience. Do not speak as an expert. Speak as a witness. What you verbalize with the intention to elevate becomes living structure within you. Total reprogramming does not culminate when you repeat a phrase, but when you teach it with conviction, because the act of teaching is the act of creating again. You don't just share what you know, you create what you will be. Practical exercise. 7. The law of shared reflection. Objective: to consolidate new mental programming by teaching others what you are learning. Instructions: select a key affirmation that represents a truth you want to reinforce in yourself. Example: the power is in my mind. I'm completely healthy. My provision is infinite. Think of someone who could benefit from hearing that truth. It doesn't have to be someone close, or even someone you believe is open to the topic. Just someone real. For 3 consecutive days, share that truth with a different person each day. You can do this in a conversation, a written note, a voice message, or even a post if you prefer. The goal is to verbalize the truth with the intention of transmitting it. After each sharing, write in your notebook. What did you say? How did you feel saying it? What did you notice in yourself afterward? What emotional or mental change occurred? After the 3 days, select a new truth and repeat the process. Note: if you can't find anyone to tell, speak out loud as if you were teaching. Your subconscious does not need an audience, it needs consistency. And speaking as a teacher makes you a steady receiver of what you teach. Remember, what you affirm for another is imprinted in you.